I really feel like I owe my life to him.
If it wasn't a dog in that grave, it would have been a man, or maybe more than one.
A monument will be dedicated next month to some of the lesser-known heroes of World War II. Don Knapp reports on the Dogs of War.
A grateful America welcomed returning veterans at the end of World War II. Soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and dogs. But except for a small cemetery on a distant island, there are few honors for the Dogs of War that gave their all. 50 years ago, Dr. William Putney's Marine commander on Guam ordered him to bury a combat casualty. 24 dogs were buried in the cemetery, killed while sniffing out enemy troops or warning of ambush or running through enemy lines with supplies. 5 years ago, Putney returned to Guam to find the dogs' graves neglected, run down, and overgrown. Putney commissioned sculptor Susan Bahari Wilner to create a monument to the dogs.
To me, this is more a subject, more about love, even though it's a war monument. And I hope that people can take a piece of love back when they see that piece, that they'll feel the love that we have for the dogs and that the dogs had for us.
December the 8th, 1941, only a day after the sneak attack on Pearl Harbor, the small island of Guam was invaded by the Japanese. It was virtually undefended. It held out for only 4 days before falling. No other American civilians suffered so much in World War II as the citizens of Guam. They were beaten, they were beheaded, hundreds were put in concentration camps. On July 21st, 1944, the Americans struck back. American Marine, Navy, and Army casualties exceeded 7,000. An estimated 18,500 Japanese were killed, while another 8,000 roamed loose in the jungle. Sooner or later became a problem for the war dog platoons. Among the dead and wounded were 25 dogs specially trained by the Marines to search out enemy hiding in the bush, detect mines, booby traps, alert troops in foxholes at night to approaching enemy, and to carry messages, ammunition, and medical supplies. As the commanding officer of the 3rd War Dog Platoon and veterinarian for the 2nd and 3rd Platoons, both of which served with the 3rd Marine Division on Guam, I cared deeply for the dogs who were wounded or killed, and for the young Marines who lost their partners and companions. 24 dogs gave their lives for the liberation of Guam. They were buried in a rice paddy on the landing beach at Asan in a small section of the Marine Cemetery. Always faithful, Kurt, a Doberman who saved the lives of 250 Marines when he silently alerted to Japanese soldiers. The Marines were saved, but Kurt and his handler, PFC Alan Jacobson, were critically injured by an exploding enemy mortar shell. I tried desperately to save him. After the surgery, I took him into my foxhole that night, and throughout the night, 16-inch shells from the Navy bombardment battleships offshore whistled overhead, and when they struck the ground would just slam into your face. Kurt was unable to protect himself, so I gathered him in my arms to keep him from slamming down on the ground as the shells burst. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Kurt stopped breathing. Kurt was the first of the 24 dogs who died in action on Guam.
From World War II to Vietnam, man's best friend has been at his side. Thousands of war dogs have gone into battle, serving as messengers and sentries sniffing out enemy snipers and providing patrols with almost perfect protection from ambush.
This cemetery is the only known one of its kind in the world, and it's a fitting monument today that we recognize some of our fallen American warriors. I ask each of you to ask yourselves a question which we will never really know the answer to, and that is how many American servicemen's lives were saved through the actions and the sacrifices of the war dog platoons.
I would only go as one who owns a dog and has never been much without a dog. I would say that truly a dog is man's best friend, and on occasion, like has been described for us here today, these dogs gave their all, as has been said here today, they gave their tomorrows, that those of us that walk around on two legs could continue on and live a little bit longer.
Rain fell as the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Carl E. Mundy, Jr., helped artist Susan Wilner and the cemetery's main supporter, Dr. William Putney, unveil Always Faithful. While veterans of the Guam Liberation laid wreaths at the markers, Dr. Putney recounted the heroic stories of these fallen Marines.
The War Dog Cemetery began with Kurt, and both Jacobson and Kurt were injured. Jacobson would refuse to be evacuated until he was assured that the Marines that he was scouting for would take Kurt to me and see if I could treat him. And I worked on him all day and into the night. And in my foxhole, about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, Kurt stopped breathing, and I was so tired I put my head on his chest and slept. Major Tonis, who was the provost marshal at the time, woke me up at daybreak and saw that I had lost Kurt and expressed his condolences, and I mumbled, "What shall I do with him now?" And Major Tonis told me, "You take him to the Marine Cemetery down on the beach, and you bury him there, and you have them buried there, and if anybody tells you anything different, you come and see me." That dog was a Marine like all the other Marines, and he deserves to be in the Marine Cemetery, and that's where he's going to go. And that, ladies and gentlemen, started the War Dog Cemetery on Guam.
Bow our heads for a moment of silence for